Okay, so today I want to return to Centurion in White Forest, and I want to talk about why you might want to reconsider this in Supreme Darkness format. I want to give firstly a brief overview on the difference in playstyle between Centurion and White Forest, talk about some of the problems inherent to Centurion and why you would want to play White Forest to begin with, and why Supreme Darkness maybe changes the way that Centurion worked in White Forest before. So first of all, let me just give you a brief bit of context. So Centurion is a true mid-range deck with many one-card starters but not super high-quality extenders. The most popular style recently was the Bestial Centurion deck, where you double down on the mid-range playstyle by having Regained as a core part of your resource loop. So you're setting on something like a Regain draw every turn, an Atri draw every turn, probably hopefully a Legatia draw every turn, and then your Legatia and your Auxilla are hopefully resetting your monsters into the trap zone in every single end phase. So you basically grind out on Bestials and hand traps, and then you win by out-resourcing your opponent. Now, one of the problems with this deck, which if you were following Pac when he played this, is that the quality of the cards is very, very mixed in Centurion. So for example, Emblema Oath is a spectacular card in terms of resource economy, because this places any Centurion monster from your deck in your spell and trap zone as a face-up continuous trap. So you have access to any monster you could possibly have wanted. So no matter where you got stopped by your opponent, this chooses any extender, like a custom card, really, choosing any extender you want to continue your combo. Or you can just use this as a starter if you weren't playing otherwise, and it works basically the same way. Because, you can get like a Trudea, place Primera get you the field spell, give you Gargoyle, do whatever it is that you wanted to do. And then it also has the added flexibility of giving you a spell or trap if, you already had enough starters / extenders to be able to play. The problem is, and I believe this is when Pac lost the last time he played this at a YCS, is cards like Atri, Gargoyle, Wake Up, and Phalanx are very low quality cards that are at best super conditional extenders. For example, you have to send a face-up Centurion card you control to the graveyard to special summon Gargoyle, or to use Wake Up's effect, you already have to have a monster card face up in your spell and trap zone. So these are win more cards, but they're so useful and core to the ceiling of your deck that you have no choice but to play these cards. So much so to the point that Pac actually played 2 Phalanx. This is the one that the grave effect is you can banish it from your grave and then target a Centurion Synchro and special summon it, and that will trigger stuff like your Legatia to give you another draw pop. And usually you get this into the grave by banishing Wake Up to dump the Phalanx. So it's a true mid-range deck with a mixture of quality of cards that can lose to itself based on bricking. So why would you want to play this in White Forest now that Supreme Darkness is out? So Centurion was one of the most popular sub-engines that was played with White Forest before, and you would see huge variance in engine sizes, sometimes even 3 Primera, 3 Trudea, sometimes 2 and 2. Sometimes like 3 stand-up, 1 and 1. There were lots of different iterations of these. Now, first of all, if the main problem or one of the main problems with your deck was the ceiling cards cause you to brick, you aren't making your deck better by just putting the same bricks into whatever other deck you put these into. So leaving out the Phalanx, leaving out the Wake Up, leaving out the Gargoyle, I'll just pull up the Centurion stuff here before I show you the combo lines. Leaving out these low quality cards like the Gargoyle and the Wake Up, etc. is important for making your deck more consistent, and it's really like the reasoning behind potentially doing something like this. Now, another thing that's super important, if you have tested White Forest Centurion before Supreme Darkness, one of the things that you, I am sure, will have noticed is if you draw a Centurion card, it makes your combos extremely awkward at best and sometimes bricks your hand by conflicting your normal and not allowing you access to that card. For example, if you read Stand Up Centurion, this places a Centurion monster from your deck. It cannot place from your hand or grave, it must be from your deck. So if you draw one of these, you can't place it off of Stand Up. It's not like Requiem that can unbrick like a Lacrim or Engraver from your hand. And really you'd be like using a tank, maybe a toy tank if you were on tanks, to get these out of your hand. So what I've decided to do is I have taken out all Astellars, which is a card that functioned far better in the toy version because, for example, if you have Box and Box sets Soldier and Tank and a Stellar sends Soldier and you get Impermed, you're basically soaking their interaction for free because the Soldier can still get you Rusia anyhow, and then the Rusia can still send the Tank. and then tank can further unbrick you based on bringing something back from your hand or grave or whatever. If you're not playing the toy cards, the Stellar is a much harder sell, especially in a meta that may be playing a lot of hand traps. We haven't really settled yet in terms of the non-engine right now. So I feel like a combination of not playing the toy cards and also having other normals means that a Stellar is a very, very risky card. So Sylvie is your primary normal, which is why it's at 3. A card being at 3, by the way, means that you want to draw it every single hand. That's the only thing that a card being at 3 means. However, in this deck, we are also playing these other normals. So the Atri is debatable because for the same reason that you take out the Phalanx, the Wake Up, the Gargoyle, you could argue the Atri is a low quality draw, and so you shouldn't be playing this card. And maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should not play this card. However, a core part of the Centurion loop, when you make Centurion Primera Primus, you get the Emblema Oath, which is over here, and then you search the Atri with it. That's a very powerful combo because that's what sets up the draw every single turn, in addition to all of the other resource economy you have. So you could cut the Atri, and in that case, you would probably also cut the Oath, because Oath is a lot less good if you search it off of Primera, but you already had access to the Tridea and the Primera. So you could cut Oath and Atri and lower the ceiling of your deck and lower the kind of like every turn resource game of your deck. I'm opting to play it for now, and I don't mind as much because it doesn't conflict with the normals as much. The Azamina LZ, I should also mention, helps greatly for unbricking your normals if you were to brick on 2 normals, because this can, let's say you draw just this in Rusia, you don't have to use your normal on the Rusia, which you would in like other versions of the deck where you brick on a Rusia, because this can special itself and then Rusia can special itself. Or like, you know, you could Azamina LZ special a Sylvie, for example, and then normal summon one of these cards, and you still can go into Primera Primus or whatever. So anyhow, the point is, the idea behind this deck is to take out the lowest possible quality cards, debatably keep in Atri and Oath, and focus on the extra deck component of the Centurion stuff by Crimson Dragon still being able to give you double Blazar. Okay, now I don't want to take too much time to go over more theory, so I'm going to show you a couple combos. These are actually replays, but these are unranked because this is Supreme Darkness, and so the quality of the replay is low enough that you can basically just consider this a combo video. So this one is against, I think, Ubel. The game didn't last enough to see what was happening. I will mention that this deck still loses to Droll, so the main advantage that pure Centurion has over this version is you can play around Droll. I mean, not if you start your turn with like discard Lubellion, search Magnamut, because then you will lose to Droll. But the Centurion engine itself only needs to search once, so they can play around Droll, they can play around Shifter, they can play around Fuelos, they can play around Prulia. That is not true with this version of the deck, but this version of the deck is more consistent and has more ceiling. So you Sengenjin, you summon, you add another one, so this is where you would get Droll, and that's why this does not help you play around Droll, aside from just the White Forest stuff. But this is a very, very high quality extender, which is almost never not an extender because you almost always have something in your hand that allows you to use this as something useful. In this case, I will start by using the Witch and sending the free discard. This is a very, very useful part of the Azamina engine, is getting... It's not just like anyone can say like, oh, worst case scenario, you can send this piece of trash card to the grave like off the Witch, but you don't want to draw the piece of trash card. Whereas with the Sengenjin, you want to draw this. This is a very, very useful card. So you send the one you searched, and here you get access to the Deception. And this card, so remember, this one adds an Azamina card from your deck to your hand. You may be used to just searching Hallowed Azamina, but this can get you Azamina LZ, and this comes up very, very often. Actually, you don't even have to play Hallowed Azamina. You could play it without that, and there would be less bricks in your deck. That's something that I would seriously recommend you consider, but I'm not covering that in this video right now. Another thing that you can consider is shotgunning the Ilia Sylvia, because you already have ways to play. Like, you know, you could special Azamina LZ, then special Rusia, and then you can, you know, go into your whatever plays. In this case, I don't have a Speller Trap to send off of the Arciela, so I kind of want to continue playing. And in many cases, you'll find that Murcielago actually functions similarly to an Ilia Sylvia, because it forces your opponent to do something at some point, otherwise you're going to get a lot of interactions. So here they negate this with Imperm. So here we're like, okay, so we summon Azamina LZ, and that allows us to bring out the Rusia. We do not have anything for the Arciela to discard. We could shuffle back the Murcielago to our extra deck and give ourselves back the Hallowed Azamina so the Arciela would have a search. That is an option. But here I just go for the Silvera to get the search off of the Azamina LZ. And that gives us the Wanted card, which is another part of the resource economy. And this is fine, because if you'd made Ilia Sylvia and tribute it to negate, then you don't keep the body. But it's very easy to turn 2 6s into a Centurion card, which is not normally what happens in the Centurion decks. And so here the Auxilla can give us access to the field spell, and now we can get another free discard or Ilia Sylvia because the Murcielago was in the grave. So here we can activate the Hallowed Azamina and then chain the Wanted. So we have another free card in our hand, and that brings out the Ilia Sylvia. So now you feel kind of safe, because if I am looking over this correctly, you haven't used your normal summon yet. Like, you could literally just normal summon Atri and go into a Legatia if you're want to have as good of a resource game as possible, or you could go into a Crimson Dragon. The problem with going straight Crimson Dragon Blazar on your own turn is that you only have one reset to your spell and trap zone, and so you can't make another Crimson in your opponent's turn. So anyhow, another thing that's useful here is that if you have a shuffle back for your Rusia or your Sylvie, it is much easier to make the Crimson Dragon or the second 12. So here I go into Legatia and I get the draw, and here we draw into a Droll, which is very good. And now I've used up my fodder for Rusias and Sylvies if I had any more, because I've made the 2 level 12s. But I can now activate Stand Up. I can pitch the extra Witch that I got and place the Trudea, which can bring out the Primera here. And I didn't like that I drew the Atri. That's not like super convenient, but it is what it is. And here I get an extra draw here, and the Primera I don't believe that it has anything else to search, so I normal summon the Atri, and then I just hard make the Diabel. So there are like divergences in the lines you would normally make, because obviously, usually if you're making an 8 in Centurion, you're making Primera Primus to search the Oath and then bring the Atri, but if you've drawn the Atri, you can't do that conveniently. But I wanted to just show you that like drawing these cards is nowhere near as bad as it was before Supreme Darkness, just because it's a lot easier to flow your plays into other stuff. So yeah, and then we can end phase and we can place 2, and this is good because you only need 2 to make a Crimson Dragon, and like worst case scenario, you could send like the last card off the Diabel, or after you've used Stand Up to sync, you could send it off the Diabel. Just depends on the sequencing of everything. So here he goes Terraforming and Throne, which I Ilia Sylvia, and then the game basically ends here, I think, because he scoops. Yeah. So, but I mean, I'm not. Listen, I'm not trying to tell you this is high quality gameplay. I'm just trying to show you how the deck works, and I guess it like is better to do this against players, even if the gameplay is bad, compared to just a combo in a vacuum. So here he gets drolled, and that's really just the story of this game, because he ends on this card, which is if my monster activates this effect, he can attach 2 materials. The effect becomes both players draw 1 card, which is not good, unless I guess he has like a droll or something. So here again, I draw one of the Centurion normal summons, but no problem. So I normal summon, knowing that I have ways to extend, because I have LZ in hand, I have the goat. Normally what you would do, like if this was a detonator for example, is you would LZ, send the goat. This is like the insane goated combo, and there's nothing on field for detonator to pop, and then you chain link 2 goat because it was sent for cost, and LZ hasn't resolved yet. You call detonator, and then he's just looking stupid because you spent all that money on a Ryzeal deck and the detonator can't even activate its effects. But because this is not detonator, this is Gossip Shadow, I actually want my LZ to resolve, so me being able to chain the goat to it doesn't help if he just negates the LZ to begin with. So yeah, that's why I start with a normal summon that I don't need to resolve. Here I can Deception. I have a second LZ, so I can send that LZ, and now I am revealing what I'm on fully. Here again, this is an example of where you could just straight up make Ilia Sylvia because you have a way to play. You can LZ, send the goat, and continue playing. You also have a Stand Up, so the moment you get another draw for the discard, you can place like a Trudea, for example, to give you your Atri or whatever. But I find that in many cases, this is just like functionally equivalent to making an Ilia Sylvia, because they either interact with it, or you're going to be able to make enough plays off of that alone that it forces something, and it's maybe even better than the Ilia Sylvia. So yeah, I banished the Gossip Shadow just because I want that engraved to give me back like a free summon here. So now I can activate it, chain the Wanted. And by the way, this is not like a freak interaction. This is not like as unusual as it was before. Because of Azamina LZ, you have access to these cards so often that like so many turns you are going to be using Hallowed Azamina, you're going to get it back, and then you're going to use it and like, you know, chain a wanted or whatever. So here we bring out the Omni. Here we get a draw. Now we go into the LZ of the White Forest. We get our whatever, and then he scoops here. So yeah, whatever. Not riveting gameplay, but I'm just trying to give you an idea of how the deck plays. Okay, so here we have now an instance where we actually have not hard drawn any of the Centurion normals. We just have the stand up, which means that you don't have to make Auxilla. But what's great is that we haven't drawn any of those normals. So here you can normal the Sylvie. What a lot of people would do here before is you just immediately imperm this, because it's like, okay, you don't have an extender. Well, you're not searching tails to get an LZ and continue playing. And so a lot of people would just hit this right here. So here's the imperm. Doesn't matter. We've used our normal. It's fine. I'll just call this Azet. I think Azet summon for free. Make Arciela now. And this is one of the reasons why I was saying it's important to have like minimum 2, preferably 3 different names that are White Forest things, since you're not on the toy card, so that you don't run out of resources. So we get the wanted here, and we search the LZ. So now we're looking so good. And remember, just because you don't have a stellar doesn't mean that it's any harder to go into Diabel, because you have a 2 in Azet and you have a 2 in LZ. So that's never an issue. So we reset the Unleashing. Now we send it again because we're going to make the Diabel and add it back, I think. Yeah, so the Diabel adds back the Unleashing, and so that's fine. That's totally fine. That's why I say that, you know, 2 is bare minimum, but 3 feels more comfortable. But I think you could probably do it without the Sinful Spoils of the White Forest. It's just that it's searchable by both archetypes, so it really helps make sure that whatever play you want to get to always happens. Okay, so one thing that people may have noticed before Supreme Darkness is here you could just shuffle back the Arciela and bring out your Sylvie, and then the Diabel, which is an 8, and the Sylvie, which is a 4, could go into an Auxilla, which for example could search a stand-up if we didn't draw it, and do the combo from there. The problem with that is, even though it technically works, you are getting rid of a boss monster. This is already a boss monster. Why would you do that? You should only do that if you are desperate or you need that play to resolve for some particular reason. But like, I would not recommend getting rid of a boss monster for another boss monster. Like, that's not good. You want all. You want your ceiling to be better. You want your consistency to be better. You don't want to just be trading engines for no reason. So here again, we make Marciela go. And remember, like, listen, at this point, I haven't used stand up. Like, if they nib me, okay, bro. Like, this is why I'm saying, like, you could make Ilia Sylvia because you have a way to continue playing, so you don't need more engine. But the engine functions as, you know, like, as almost like a negate, in the sense that you're generating so much card economy, they either have to do something or you're just going to snowball. Yeah, so anyhow, now I make the Cheng-Ying. You could, like, what I think would be a solid play, especially if you don't want to fit the Cheng-Ying, is you could just make a Chaos Angel going first, which would be a light and dark, okay? And then you don't have to worry about stuff like nib. That would be like a super, super solid way to play around nib. And then, like, when they are going to nib, the Chaos Angel and the Diabel stay, and you have the Unleashing, for example. And if you then start making your Centurion plays, they'll have to nib you before you make the Synchro Summons. It's not even going to be like the best possible spot to nib, because they're going to have to nib the stuff that's not affected. But anyhow, I'm just showing that you can make Cheng-Ying. Cheng-Ying is great if you can use Wanted Banish, which is on your turn, or if you have Goat in the Grave. That turns Cheng-Ying in this deck into a far better card, because now you have an out-of-turn Banish. Anyhow, so here we get back the Hallowed Azamina, which is what this I'm telling you that you will resolve this twice so often because of how easy it is to search these cards. So now we have the Omni. So we got the Omni anyhow. Okay, we got the Omni anyhow. We just have like an additional boss body on top of all that. Now we want to stand up. We want to get an extra draw to see what to discard. And now we can stand up, send a Witch, which was, you know, we don't need another Witch. We can Trudea here, and now he scoops here because it's like, well, you know, there's nothing to be done. So yeah, now the last one that I'll show you is I think this one. I think this was against Branded. And this is weird because I feel like this should have been an actual game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And he just scooped way too early. So here he searches Branded Fusion, Branded Fusions, brings out Albion, goes into the Lubellion here, and he has regained. So he Mirror Jades, brings out the Quem, and I don't really have too much commentary on the branded deck because I don't know it super well, and it's also just like too complicated to have like good opinions on if you're not like pretty familiar with it. But he's gone like pretty far into his resource loop totally uninterrupted, and at this point, like, I'm basically drawing, actually hoping for another interruption. And my thought process here is I don't really know how much I can play through. Because his interruptions are so layered, if I could take his Mare Jade before getting something banished, like off of talents, that would be great. If I just normal summon Trudea, you know, he might banish it, and then I've used my normal, and now I'm forced into a specific play where I special the LZ, and then I special the Rusia, and then he has to allow that to go through for me to maybe, like, Arciela discard the Goat or something. If I had an LZ, it would be easier because I could do the same thing where I LZ pitch Goat. Then, before LZ's resolved, I chain the Goat and call like a Mare Jade, for example, or like a Guardian Chimera, you know? So I feel like my hand is very awkward into this board because he has the branded regain set. Now he summons the Mysterion, the Dragon Crown. Okay, so I go Chainlink 1 Azet to special summon, and I'm planning on special summoning itself, but you don't have to tell them what you're special summoning when you reveal it. You do that on res. So now he summons this card. So this card says if a monster uses its activated effect to special summon itself or a monsters with its same original type, then you can target one of them and banish that monster and banish all monsters on the field with the original type. So I'm like, okay, maybe let me just summon the Sylvie, not commit to my normal, keep the Trudea as a potential normal later, and this is an illusion, but I'm summoning a spellcaster and see what he does. So now I summon the Sylvie, and we get to a new chain. So he regains the special of Bestial and Grand Dusk Dragons, and now he has the option to use the Mysterion, the Dragon Crown, and he actually can banish spellcaster monsters, which is, I mean, I don't even know if this is the correct play because he loses 2 cards and I only lost 1 card, and I still got a search off of that card. But I'm not like super versed in branded, so I don't know. But this is perfect because I haven't used my normal, and I still have the Trudea that hasn't been used, and he doesn't have a window to Mirror Jade my Trudea or whatever. So now I talents to take the Jade. Obviously I can't use the effect. Jade is an 8, and Azamina LZ is a 2, and this is dark and this is light. So I could Chaos Angel, you know, banish like a, I don't know, banish like the regained, because if I try to banish the branded in red, he's obviously just gonna bring out the Guardian Chimera anyhow, but that can't deal with the Chaos Angel. So I have options. You know, I could special the Rusia here. Here he adds back the branded fusion. I don't know exactly why. Now, before I make any play, before I commit to making, for example, a Chaos Angel, which is one option, I do want to have access to an LZ, because if I make a Chaos Angel here, I'm losing the ability to special Rusia. If I special the Rusia here, I'm going wide, and he has an option to Chimera pop 2 when he shouldn't have that option. You know, if he had another monster on field. So yeah. So anyhow, I search the LZ, which means LZ is live and Rusia is live, importantly. So this makes 2 cards live, not just the LZ that I just searched. Now, I don't actually remember why I chose to go wide here. Why did I do that? Yeah, and then I don't know why he surrenders. I think maybe he made a mistake with the Mysterion, and he didn't, I don't know if he meant to banish his spellcasters, because now he doesn't have the materials for the Guardian Chimera with the double pop. So, yeah, also not a high quality game, but just, again, showing you like that I have options, you know, like I could, if he was going to put another monster on board or threaten a Chimera, you know, I can immediately, I can Chaos Angel first, then, and maybe do it on his branded Lost or something so that I still have interactions. I could, if he doesn't Chimera there, or if he chains branded in red, I can chain Goat and call Chimera, and then he has to do something like inefficient, and you know, I still have like the LZ and the Rusi in hand. So anyhow, that should hopefully give you an idea of like what the deck can do. I don't think that these ratios are optimal. The only reason that I haven't taken out Hallowed is because it's so often that you actually do get to resolve this twice a turn that I think you probably should play it instead of just Deceptioning for an Azet. And this card hasn't come up for me nearly as often in this build, so I don't think that you have to play this, but then you do have to be more careful and intentional with your resource loop. So That's basically what I wanted to talk about today with the Centurion version of the deck. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.